Russo and Felice. I am Paul Russo. Nick Felice, as always, joining me. Nick, been a couple weeks, obviously.
Who is this guy on the screen?
Sorry, it's playoff mustache for baseball, so be with us here for the next couple weeks, so deal with it.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, knock on wood. So, yeah, but yeah, who are you? Who are you on the screen?
Well, this is a very special episode today, Paul.
Oh, it is?
You think we got these topics, but I'm going to change up the show, and we're just going to go through every Baltimore Orioles losing season and just discuss and give all the facts about those seasons. Don't you think it would be a great idea to talk about all the bad times of the Baltimore Orioles?
Sure. And we won't get suspended because we aren't on the payroll. So
yeah, that's true.
I'm kind of with it.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't include that, admittedly, because we had talked before that even happened about what we wanted to talk about today, which I'm looking forward to because it's actually a little bit different than what we kind of actually usually do in a way with many of the sports topics. And what a wacky. Nothing surprising me anymore that with the Orioles ownership group, and it's the Angelos family still and everything like that. But it's not even the first time this has happened. I completely forgot that they his dad fired John Miller back in the day because he criticized the team, and it was like another, again, factually based thing, and they fired him, and now he's even then was a legend of the time, but like now he's gone on to just kind of do the San Francisco Giants and Sunday Night Baseball for a number of years and has solidified himself with being synonymous with the Giants anyway. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Kevin Brown's actually got a lot of Syracuse ties. He was, I think, with the now S-Mets for a couple seasons. Not a number, not like he was a long time there. He's a young guy, so. But yeah, had this wild situation. Nuts.
Yeah, I would. If I were him, I mean, obviously, it's not easy to guarantee another job, but I would get out of there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to deal with that. I mean, all that pressure, and then you got like every other play-by-play, every other announcer defending him.
Yeah, I haven't.
So it's like, so they're all allowed to criticize the team just a tad. He didn't even criticize. That's what's so crazy.
It was a factually based thing that they had graphics all set and ready.
Yeah.
For. It was in their media pack for the day too. Even like, what's that tell you?
Yeah, it's just, but like, it seems like every other announcer has this way about the Orioles. It's a bad luck.
Yeah. No. Yeah, terrible. Before we get any further, I'd like to thank a couple sponsors. DeSano Propane. DeSano Propane, 4 generations strong, is a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSanoPropane.com for more information, or you can call them toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSano Propane. And Go Net Speed. The future of connection is here, and it's fiber made for how we live and work today. Go Net Speed. Fiber is faster and stronger than anything out there. Check availability in your area as well as plans and pricing at GoNetSpeed.com and get ready for fast and reliable fiber internet straight to your home. So let's jump into it here, Nick, and it's something that it's been the major talking point now for really the past week, although to be fair, could make the case we're going further. We have conference realignment. Mainly the Pac-12 is the player here. Pac-12 is no more, pretty much. All begins last year with USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten for this, not this year, but next year. Colorado was the next to jump, going back to the Big 12. And then at that point, you heard rumors about the other teams kind of trying to figure out what they're going to do. And technically, I guess, the first dominoes to fall were Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State going to the Big 12, and then Utah with them. And now we have Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten as well, leaving Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State in limbo and unsure of what the future looks like for them. But how all this shook down was, I'd say maybe even more of a, I don't know if shock's the right word, but compared to where we were in, say, like 2011 and 12 and 13 with that last major round of realignment, it seemed to be a lot more amplified this time around.
Yeah. This is, I mean, like you said, conference realignment has always been a thing, and it was a big thing a few years, what was that, 10 years ago now you said?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, 10 to 12.
But this feels like it's the start of the new era.
Something new, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there will always be other conferences. There'll be these little conferences like the Patriot League and all them. But they're just going to be like the minor leagues to these other conferences. What I think is going to happen, future plans, I think it's just going to be, like they've been saying, it's going to be the Big X and the SEC. I think that will be the college sports. I mean, Pac-12's already looking like they're going to dissolve.
Oh, they have to.
Yeah, and so you're going to lose them. And then the ACC and the Big 12 are just, they're trying to bring in teams. Like the ACC's been rumored to bring in Cal and Stanford. And the Big 12 has already brought in Colorado. These aren't your UCLA, USC teams. They're just trying to stay in it for now. I think maybe in the next 10 years, they might be what's going on with the Pac-12 right now. And I think they're all going to just join the Big X. I mean, you might have to change the name of the Big X, to be honest with you. But the Big X and the SEC, I think, is going to have like an East, a West, and a Central. I mean, it's going to become like two different leagues with other leagues. I mean, I don't see them ever taking like, I don't even know, example, Lipscomb.
Right. Right.
Is Lipscomb ever going to be part of the SEC? So there's always going to be these, and it might be the ACC still that might become one of them. They're going to lose their value of being a top tier Power 5 conference. Yeah. They might still be there. Even the Pac-12 might come back, or I'm not sure what they're going to do right now. I mean, but what people are going to be looking at as the top of college sports for the tournaments. Now we even got a college football legit tournament, and it's going to be the Big X and the SEC. They're going to take those teams first, and they're not even going to really consider the other teams. Yeah. And I don't know. It's kind of sad because when I think of college sports, I think of all the conferences, and I like that there was 5 or 6, however your opinion goes, big conferences, and it's really really depressing because, you know, Big East guy, grew up watching the Big East.
Right.
They're not even a football conference anymore. They were really the start of it. They dissolved in football. I mean, they're still there in basketball.
It's not even technically the same Big East, though.
Yeah, it's not even. It's American took over the old.
Technically, if you want to do the lineage, American's the closest to what was the old Big East conference.
Yeah, the Big East, they just made it as a basketball conference. So, really, they dissolved. And now we're seeing it to the Pac-12, and I think in 10 years we might see it to the ACC and the Big 12 as well. And the Big 12 might be even sooner because...
I don't think the Big 12's in any danger, just based on they got 4 of these Pac-12 schools. Mm-hmm. They already brought in... Now, obviously they're losing Texas and Oklahoma right to the SEC, not this year but next year. But, you know, to me, I mean, they brought in Houston, they brought in BYU, they brought in UCF, brought in Cincinnati to kind of do this de facto replacing of teams. And I don't see the Big 12 going anywhere. Football's going to be interesting for them. I think that's where I think this main focus is going to be talked about here now for, well, at least with us here for the next little bit, is, right, like, I see the SEC and the Big Ten being the football conferences now. Could the ACC still contend? Yeah, absolutely. For now, anyway, yeah. You know, and obviously same with the Big 12, but I think, you know, football-wise, it's going to be the Big Ten and SEC. You know, the other sports we'll get to here in a second, but the football one's always interesting to me because it's interesting how, and this wasn't a P5 conference, and they never were, and they never have been, but the way the Pac-12 went kind of reminded me in a way of the first act of the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference, when they were, for football, 1A, or FBS, whatever you want to call it now, right? Where they just had so many teams across such a wide path of land, they couldn't survive, and teams got ended up getting poached. I mean, the WAC for me, when I remember, we want to talk about whatever, like NCAA football 08, the WAC to me was from Louisiana Tech all the way over to Hawaii. And in between was like you had your UTEPs, you had your New Mexicos, you had all the way from Utah State, I already mentioned Hawaii, but like San Jose, you had a bunch of these smaller schools. And it was just, frankly, those schools had no choice at the time but to go to your Mountain Wests, your Sun Belts, depending upon where you were, because you couldn't just afford anymore going to, like I said, if you're Louisiana Tech, you're going to Hawaii every year multiple times over for sports. And it brutalizes some of these programs. So I get when stuff like that happens, and I think we're in also just a different day and age now where I can't see the Big 12 falling off just yet. It would have to take for me to see the Big 12 fall off really your heavy-hitting schools. And that, to me, that includes your Houstons and BYUs now, just because of the brand recognition that they both have, more so almost BYU nationally than even Houston. But, you look at the Big 12, you have Baylor, Tech is still there, Oklahoma State will still be there, the Kansases will both still be there. Depending upon how you feel about it, I kind of lump West Virginia in there a little bit, although they're in an interesting spot. And a question earlier on I do want to pose to you involves them. But, I think they have enough players there and enough now they're bringing, obviously, with the Arizonas and your Utah and Colorado back, that I can't see them fading away. I think it would have to take something really crazy to see the Big 12 fall off at this point.
Give it time, Paul. I think...
Especially, not to interrupt, by the way, but now this is where I think we can bridge. The Big 12, like I said, they're going to be the basketball conference. There is not a collective better conference now for basketball than the Big 12, right? Baylor, Houston, BYU and Utah always contend, right? Arizona, Colorado has their moments, right? Oklahoma State's usually no slouch. I mean, Big 12's got it. Again, depending on how you feel about them, West Virginia's in there too, And plus, UCF, I mean, they're done all right. Cincinnati's a top 20 program all time. I mean, that's a good, if they're not number one, they're number two basketball conference in my mind. Okay? And the ACC is number one or two, depending on the way you look at it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, basketball-wise, they're definitely improved a lot. Just unfortunately, these schools not that they don't care about basketball and these other sports.
Right.
Football is the moneymaker,
right.
And the reason all these conference realignments have happened is because of football. And it just takes a couple bad committee decisions where Colorado is having a great year, 10-2, right on the bubble of the 12-team tournament. And it's not surprising that this all happened for next season because of that 12-team tournament coming in next year. But if they're right on the bubble and they're not in because they're playing in the Big 12 and they let another team in, and if that keeps happening.
I was opposed to that to you, though. Like, we're coming up on that, right? And I was going to weigh this to you and question it. Like, what's going to happen to these teams where it's like, say Syracuse has this 11-1 season, but they finish in second in the ACC. But so is that going to outweigh? And I don't even want to use the Big 12 because I don't think it's going. I don't think that's where it's going to really happen. I think it's the Big 10 where it happens, where it's like who would you have? The 11-1, or I guess in this situation it'd be like 12-1 Syracuse, because they would have to make the hypothetical ACC championship game, right? Where, they were in first all year, but they lost in the championship game. So, do you take that, or do you take the 8-4 or 9-3 like USC, because they just have to play quote unquote better opponents all year? And it got announced, I think it was yesterday, that the Big Ten's probably going to be moving to a 10-conference game schedule now.
That becomes the big question,
right.
Is who do you put in? And a couple times, if they take that 8-4 team from the Big Ten, it's going to push a team like Syracuse, wow, I want to get out of this conference.
Right.
If Colorado starts having great years and they're not getting in the NCAA tournament, they're putting together 9-3 campaigns, and they feel like they're ready to make the NCAA tournament in football, and they're not getting in because they're in the Big 12, just a few times like that over a decade, you're going to see some teams wanting to join the Big Ten and the SEC just because they want to get that shot at winning a national title.
And it's been a double-edged sword for the ACC, but the ACC's gonna be fine here still for the better part of a decade, because
Yeah,
because of the grant of rights that they're locked into with TV money. What's interesting is I don't think many people realize, the next TV contract due up is the Big Ten. Oddly enough, now, if you want to not look at the Pac-12 or Pac-8 or 4, whatever you want to call it, now their TV deal, I'm not counting in this because technically it's up right now and whatever. But the next one up is the Big Ten in 2030. So that, for better or worse, the next round of this is probably in like 4 years at most where we'll see movement again. And that's the thing where, a couple of the podcasts I listened to on college football and basketball both made this point. One of the guys on each podcast said, hopefully, now it'll settle down. Well, yeah, it will settle down for this next quote unquote year, but it's never actually settled anymore.
Yeah.
There's always going to be moving and shaking now. There's no such thing as stability anymore, the way that we've known it, even up until this point. And I'm going to count that early teens or whatever you want to call it movement, right? I'm counting that because Nebraska going to the Big Ten, yeah, I could see. I mean, yeah, they've been Big 8 to 12, but you could see it because of just the way the pipeline was for them through, you can connect the dots to Nebraska to Iowa to Minnesota to Wisconsin to Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, to so on and so forth, right? But the way, even then though, there was some, Rutgers isn't a Big Ten school, Maryland's not a Big Ten school, West Virginia's not Big 12. And now you just have, the Big 12 is that national scattered conference that we have now. And it's funny, it's they're the Power 5 version of even, the current WAC in basketball. They aren't in, obviously, FBS A1 football. But, the WAC, they go from, Portland State to Chicago State. That's just absurd. And that's what we're going to see now on the biggest stage. Is we're going to see that back. I'll go ahead and say again, because obviously WAC teams are in bowl games back in the day, but we're going to see that now in full force with the Big 12 especially, and Big 10, where it's just USC could be playing in the Pinstripe Bowl. I'm throwing that out there for people. There's a legitimate chance in the next, handful of years, you could be seeing Syracuse play USC or Boston College play Washington in the Pinstripe Bowl. It doesn't make any sense. And I know a part of that opens up a completely different part of discussion, but one of the beauties about bowl games also in this, and I know you disagree to a degree with it, but I love seeing these bowl games because there's a regional element to it still to a degree, right? And I know what you people might say where it's but the Rose Bowl was never like that. Yeah, to a degree, but the Rose Bowl, you always knew you were getting one of those Midwest Big Ten schools playing a Pac-12, 10 school where every couple of years it was awesome to see Northwestern play like Washington, right? And now I get it. Most of the time it would be your Ohio States, your Penn States, your Michigans playing your USCs or UCLAs or Stanfords, right? But there was still that element to it where it's we knew what was coming with that, right? And now it's just it's gone out the window. It's gone out the window.
Yeah, it just sucks for teams like Washington State and Oregon State.
Right.
They were loyal to the conference, but they're not the moneymakers. So
now
they're yep, we're done. So good luck. Go find wherever you're going to go.
And to that end, this is where I do want to kind of maybe close this portion of this talk, but we're obviously going to keep it going here because there's more stuff to dive into with the realignment. But kind of tying up with that is now I wouldn't say their hand is forced. I certainly don't have insider information on this. You don't have insider information on this. But all signs really kind of point to them probably going to the Mountain West. And if there is a positive with that is they're going to actually be able to really compete in the Mountain West, though. And it's been a rivalry that's kind of been buried over, but you saw it in basketball up until even recently because they haven't done the matchup in a while, but Washington State and Boise State was actually a huge rivalry for years. They're not far away from each other collectively, and those games are always rowdy and always fun. I think a conference like the Mountain West is going to benefit from this at the very least because you're going to bring in your Oregon State and your Washington State in the situation. And, you're going to miss the Apple Cup, right, every year. And I forget what Oregon technically called it. I think they also called it like a civil war between state and UO. But for those smaller-ish schools, your quote-unquote not money makers for football, they're going to compete. And I'll ask you this because I know how I would feel about this given where Syracuse is now. And it's a little bit different for you being the Notre Dame fan, but if you're a Washington and Oregon State fan, would you rather have the Pac-12 stay intact at this moment where at best in theory every year you kind of are going 7-5 or 8-4 and you're not getting a big chunk of that money back? Or would you rather go to the Mountain West where you're like 10-2 and you're getting probably the same amount of money you would anyway? I think as a fan, I know what I'd want. That would probably be the Mountain West option.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same money and you're doing better. So,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only option they really have is to do that. So, I don't know. It's just the other sports. It's just crazy.
Yeah, that's another point. What I did want to make sure that we talked about was these, they are the non-revenue sports, right? But, as we, I guess, also kind of lump them in the Olympic sports, and that's something that the Pac-12, frankly, has been known for. Is, I know softball, and justifiably softball got a lot of credit here, but look, baseball in the Pac-12 was big for a number of years and still is. I know, don't dismiss it, right? But, your soccers, your baseballs, your softballs, your wrestlings, stuff that the Pac-12 was known for a number of years, and the reason that a lot of those athletes stayed home was because of how good the Pac-12 is in those sports. And I do my best to not say was or were because the Pac-12 is still a thing at least through the end of this upcoming year, right? But it's hard not to talk about it in post tense now, all of a sudden. But and that's the thing that sucks about this is even like there's football players who are pissed about it, right? But it sucks for these, and I know there's been a number of softball players who come out and they even talked about it. The only reason why they stayed was because they got to play close to home. And, especially now with NIL, which, by the way, the irony is not lost on me in all of this, how these schools are complaining about they need help with NIL, helping control it from the state level for their athletes, right? But they're going to these hotels after dark with the mistress of conference realignment to go get their money. Like, the irony is not lost on me, trust me. But, and that's the thing, like, these players, these athletes, like, now, like, them making money is going to be completely changed through all this. Obviously, academic might be changed through all this. Their whole lives are changed through all this. And I don't think, once again, and it's weird kind of saying it now that we're the age that we are, but the only way I can put it is, like, the adults in the room, once again, just, I don't think, thought about the actual people who are going to be affected by this.
And then would Cal and Stanford think about coming to the ACC?
Well, we'll touch on that in a second, yeah.
But it's like Syracuse basketball on a Tuesday night is going to travel to Cal.
Well, I did make a tweet, or X, whatever the hell it's called, joking about how it's like, I, for one, can't wait I think I put it as like an 11 p.m. tip-off, and I just did the Stanford tree and Otto Orange mascot side by side. And look, part of me thinks that
Miami Stanford, great rivalry.
Like, part of me does think that's kind of cool, but the bulk majority of them is like, that's just got to be ungodly. I mean, I know it's ungodly, but like, it's just got to be ungodly if that actually goes through.
But the ACC is, it's not like they're
I mean,
all on the East Coast.
Preface it this way: they have not voted on it.
No.
They did not vote on it yesterday.
It would be weird if it was just one of them. Imagine if, it was the whole ACC like it is, and then you just got Cal.
Well, that's the interesting part in this, right? And I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on this because actually, Notre Dame and Stanford, football-wise, have a very big rivalry. Cal is behind the 8 ball no matter what here. Their best option in my mind, and obviously the Big 12 has already more or less said no to him. Big Ten's not going to take him on. I frankly think that they're collectively, quote unquote, too big for even like the Mountain West. And I would normally be with the side of I don't want them in the ACC, but for the sake of, I think, their student athletes, for the security for the moment, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But if there's one situation here where I think the department can survive, it's Stanford. They still have a little bit of a national brand. Obviously, they can't be independent across all sports. It's going to have to be more or less football. They can remain independent for a couple of years here and get away with it. But Stanford, like I said, doesn't necessarily need the conference for football at this point still. They still have enough of a national brand and recognition that they can get away with it, in my mind. That being said, I too think it's like Cal. I think they're quote unquote too big for the Mountain West. But collectively though, for both them and Cal, I don't know what other option they really got. I mean, like I said, both 12 and 10 said that they probably wouldn't take them on, at least not currently. And I don't know what other option maybe they collectively have then besides like the Mountain West or whatever, say the Pac-4, the remaining four, and Wazoo and Oregon State and those two kind of think. I think those four have to band together in some way, shape, or form, and maybe present to the Mountain West and be like, hey, can you take us on, or take four of us on in every sport and have Stanford be independent for football or something like that. Like that's the only way I can kind of see anything maybe being done collectively there.
I just got one question.
No.
Why the Big Ten? Why can't they dissolve?
No.
It's like I mean, even the SEC after all this got better. And did the Big Ten really get that much better? Oh, USC.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to think about it in this way, but this is what I mean. Like I was talking with somebody about this over the weekend. It's crazy to say this, but it's borderline the ACC even got better through this, because as much as I'm sure the SEC and the ACC would have liked to pick up a school or something through this, it's pretty apparent to me that you have enough stability in your conference to not go looking. And that's pretty indicative to me, at least in the current climate. Now, that being said, Florida State is, I know, looking to try and get out, but...
And Clemson.
Clemson I'm taking with a grain of salt. I think that's just them trying to parlay their recent football thing, knowing that that door might be closing to a degree. Yeah.
I don't get why Clemson would leave. I don't get why Clemson would leave. If the ACC is this bad and they can just run the tables, and you win the ACC, you're going to go to the tournament. Why wouldn't you take that?
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't matter in that regard.
Isn't it funny how?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny though how all these teams are just trying to find conferences, and conferences are trying to add more teams.
Right.
And then Notre Dame just stays there.
Yeah. For football anyway.
For football. And Notre Dame, you want to join conference? Nah.
Well, they might be the next domino to fall here.
I honestly think 50 years from now, we're going to have two conferences. It's going to be the Big Ten, the SEC, probably going to be called the North and the South.
Well,
and then you'll have Notre Dame in the middle.
Well, this is where I kind of want to go with this next part of it now is kind of talking about the other quote-unquote moneymaker sport here in basketball, right? Because, like I alluded to it, basketball I think is going to remain... I think basketball remains mostly unchanged for the next few years because of this, even with the schools joining the new conferences. Only because, look, and I say this with no ill will towards any one particular school or conference, anything like that. None of the teams going from the Pac-12 of quote-unquote reverence to the Big Ten are going to change their outcome basketball-wise. I think your champions, for the most part, the next handful of years are still going to come from take your pick of either the Big 12, the ACC, or the Big East. I don't see any of that changing in basketball. Football, obviously, that might change, even though I still think the SEC is going to run away with it still for the most part. But basketball, I think it remains kind of unchanged. But I'm more intrigued, more or less 10 years down the line for basketball. Because as we know with football, technically the NCAA has nothing to do with their postseason or national championship. I think what's going to be interesting here is what's going to stop really, and I don't know how it would exactly look, right? But what's going to stop the Big 12 and Big Ten, and we'll throw in the SEC and the ACC in this as well, from just saying, why don't we just kind of unionize up here and just create our own postseason tournament type thing, or we just play each other? Because I think that might actually happen because of just the money involved. Now, I don't think it's going to happen for probably 10 or so years at the earliest. And I always say that because there's just so much money still within March Madness that's not going to change. And the only time it's going to come up is when TV contracts come up. And admittedly, I don't know the CBS Turner side of things on this one, right? Because basketball is such a different kind of deal than football when it comes to TV money and contracts, because you're playing multiple times a week, and there's just different distributors even within different conference network TV deals that who knows, right? But like when you get to 10 years when definitely all these contracts are probably up, I mean, would you like to have your institution lose to quote unquote some podunk school from the MAAC and under 500 team just because they had one bad night? I know I sure wouldn't. Purdue. Right? But that's what I'm getting is they don't want to deal with that. That makes them look bad, quote unquote bad, right? Now as fans it's great. That's the stuff we love for March Madness. That's why we love March Madness. But if you're a conference, that's how you lose money quick. So that's why I'm thinking like in probably 10 plus years you're going to start seeing, I think, these conferences just kind of link up and do their own thing. And that's where this stuff actually frightens me, that's where I actually think you see the true, and it's already started, right, with all the realignment anyway in the first place, right? But that's where you actually see in real time the demise of college athletics happen.
So you're trying to process what you just said. You're thinking that the big conferences and March Madness are just not going to team up with the small schools?
Correct. Not March Madness.
Yeah.
I'm saying the conferences move away from the NCAA
yeah.
and the NCAA tournament and do their own thing.
Yeah, like how they do in college football.
Correct.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about it that college football is not an NCAA championship, the tournament.
Right.
That's interesting. That would not be good for fans.
No.
To see the 16s, the actual 16 seeds not be able to play the 1 seeds.
Mm-hmm.
That would not be good. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I can definitely see it happening. To be honest with you, all these schools care about is money. Mm-hmm. They really don't care about winning a national title. I mean, it's just more money. Mm-hmm. They just want to be guaranteed enough money so that they can continue on. I don't know.
You have to remember, at the end of the day, colleges treat the college athletics like they do anything else. And I don't mean this as, because I'm sure that there are people within each that don't think this way. But at the end of the day, any college or university is still a business, right? If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. I mean, not to go doom and gloom, hyper whatever here, but let's look hyper locally. Casanova closed this year. If you want to kick the window open a little bit bigger, Medina and Buffalo closed as well, and that one was more abrupt than Cas even was, right? Schools only see students as numbers, right? And if they start losing that number, it's going to happen, And that's where I think a lot of this kind of sucks, is, just turns everything else into more of just a number. And, I get it, we might be coming from this nostalgia tradition side of things, and that you can't operate that way. And I get that. Trust me, I'm well aware you can't operate in that space. But the fundamental root of college athletics, that's where you can't operate like that, and that's where they are operating like that. And they have for years, and that's why we have NIL now, and that's why we haven't had an NCAA video game in years and stuff like that and everything else. But, at the end of the day, when the system collapses on itself, they're only going to have each other to blame. They'll have to be the ones who look in the mirror and point at themselves. And not to put it like this, but like I had said, like with the adults in the room quote that I had, like the people making these decisions are probably going to be dead and gone by the time that really the chickens come home to roost.
Yeah.
You know, and then at the end of the day.
I think the worst thing that college sports happen is the transfer portal.
Well,
I'm not a fan of it.
the way it operates now, yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, I go back to this: if a coach can freely move around, then I think the student athlete should be able to as well. I mean, to a degree. Now, do I think bouncing around year to year is the exact right way to go about it? Probably not. But like, I mean, if we were on to transfer from when we were in college, like there was nothing really technically holding us from transferring. You know, what should stop a student athlete, I guess, from having that
true.
ability? But I do know where you're coming from. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate outright in that sense, but no, I mean, this the way it operates now is not conducive for a bright future.
Yeah. It's just sad.
Yeah.
This is not a good time for college sports.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're an Alabama fan, I guess, let's pad up our resume even more,
Right,
I guess.
yeah.
For them, I guess it's a good day, but for an actual like college sports fan to see these conferences not be how
Right.
you're used to seeing them.
Right. I would say for the people like me who genuinely do like watching like college football, basketball, baseball, and softball, like this isn't good.
Bill Wallen's got to be upset.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even seen a tweet from him since all this went down. But I do want to pose an interesting question to you to kind of maybe put a bow on it before we move on. Because obviously with the ACC, it's not the Southeast Conference, right? That's the SEC thing, right? But the ACC for us, it's always felt like being an outsider, even for like Notre Dame. You know, obviously I know that they're independent for football, and now they've kind of realigned back with the Big Ten. But everything else they're in the ACC, right? You know, major-wise. But could we see the return of, say, a Northeast alignment of schools sooner than later with all of this? Because I think it's possible. And it's funny because when I first heard somebody bring it up, I'm like, yeah, we had that. It was actually called the Big East, oddly enough. And, you know. But could we see... I'm going to throw a pack of schools together here that I've seen genuinely kicked around with this idea in mind. And I'll let you say if you think it could work or not, hypothetically here. Because this is why I think it actually might end up happening. Boston College. Now, I'm only going to include, by the way, I should preface this, I'm only including teams with football in this. Boston College, UConn, Syracuse, Pitt, you get Rutgers, you get Virginia Tech, get Maryland back, okay? You allow Louisville in, even though they're kind of not, but, you know, you've run with them before, so you allow them. And maybe...
Well, you allow UConn.
Maybe you take... Well, but UConn was within the Big East. Never mind. I outright said what we were aiming for. Anyway, West Virginia, and you take a run at Notre Dame.
The Big East, too.
Could it work? I think it could. I still think we're probably years down the line from it because, like I said, the ACC is in a pretty good pact, and they have nothing.
What about Cal? We just got used to them.
Well, yeah,
Take 'em?
they can go back to the WAC. But do you see maybe some sort of return? I'm not going to call it the Big East, but some sort of return of, say, a Northeast flavor of college union.
I mean, just because.
Should we allow Temple, by the way?
I mean, just because the Big Ten and the SEC have all these teams, someone's got to be at the bottom.
Right.
Somebody's got to be the Detroit Lions.
Well, and that's
the Cleveland Browns.
Well, that's why I bring up schools like Maryland and West Virginia, where do you think that they're having fun
losing?
Right.
After years and years.
Especially for the pedigrees of those programs.
You're not bringing this point up now. I mean, you're talking 10 years and 10 years.
Probably in another realignment.
What if you go like 10 years? I'm just throwing out a team. We'll use Louisville.
Yeah.
Louisville's had 10 straight losing seasons.
Right.
3-4 wins at the most.
Right.
Don't you think they would think about it? like let's do this other conference. Let's have more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Like our local example, the high schools teams.
Right.
They were all in this Section 5.
Yep.
Now they created their own independent football league this year because they want to play competitive games and less bus travel. But
Right.
they want to compete and play teams that they're,
Can actually play.
we'll just say, even more regionally.
Right.
Like you said in the Northeast.
Right.
And I think over time it could happen. But I just have a weird feeling money's going to be involved, and the trend is just going the other way.
Yeah.
They're not. They're just going to. And really though, gotta have some pride. I know it's not the football. The football team, coaches, whoever coaches Louisville and all that, would want to do this conference.
Yeah.
But the guys who are up top of Louisville and those teams, you gotta have a little pride. Just because you're making more money, don't you want to be more competitive?
Right. Remains to be seen. It's all chaos. It's all chaotic.
That will not happen for a while, but
No.
it's a great idea.
I'm happy that you're on board with this. While I'm at it, can I interest you in having the Philadelphia Big Five join back up to do a tournament like they used to do every year, involving Villanova, Temple, LaSalle, I think Philadelphia,
St.
and
Joseph's.
Penn. Oh, it's St. Joe's. Yeah, and Penn. Who says no?
I don't know. I mean, that was kind of funny.
Should I include the Ivy League schools in my Northeast
I mean, that was
conference?
that was cute that you just threw Notre Dame in there. Like Notre Dame's gonna go to a conference, but you know.
Well, for football they wouldn't. But I'm
Yeah,
saying
we're gonna try.
We
We're
have,
gonna
we
try
have
to
to get them. We have to get them for the others.
We're gonna try to get them.
Why not, right? Shoot or shoot. All right, before we wrap up here, I do want to talk about, because obviously we do it every other week. We won't be here next week, but Watkins Glen, NASCAR returns to the Glen. Obviously, I'm going down, have been going down. Nick, but you're going down once again.
Big year this
down
year.
in the media side. You're doing Saturday and Sunday this
The first
year.
time ever. Sunday.
I'm disappointed you won't be there for Friday night with ARCA Night in America.
Frankie Muniz.
Frankie Muniz will be running. Interesting spot he might be in. We'll see if I really bring it up, but
I will be there Friday to get my stuff,
Okay.
credentials, but I
Gotcha.
will not be there for the race.
sure. But it's always an exciting time around here. I know, obviously, now there's not maybe as much on the promotional side of things out and about through the Finger Lakes, but something about NASCAR at the Glen still kind of brings out, I think, a chipperness in the area, especially recently. Watkins has turned into a top 5 NASCAR event on the year at this point, fan-wise. Pretty sure there's still a handful of grandstand tickets, but I know camping sold out again. I'm pretty sure GA got sold out this week, so they're on track for, outside of 2021 because of the COVID restrictions still in place, they're on pace for I think it's their 8th or 9th straight sellout type thing, which is just nuts, especially when you look at how NASCAR's been the past decade or so. And fan attendance is still it's on an upswing right now, but for the fact that Watkins Glen was kind of one of the outliers track-wise to kind of hold on through all of it was something really cool. And there's a lot of headlines going into this, Nick. Obviously, things can change because when we're talking right now, they have one more race before they get there, the Indy Road Course this weekend. But one of the interesting storylines is Kyle Larson's going to be going for his 3rd straight win at the track. And arguably, the best guy who's driven their average finish-wise and everything is on the outside looking in of the playoffs and is going to have to win to get into the playoffs in Chase Elliott. So there's a lot of interesting storylines going into Watkins Glen, which, by the way, second to last race before the playoffs.
I like that. I like that it's like a playoff.
It's the second to last one before.
Big playoff meaning race, so brings a little bit more excitement to the race. Looking forward to going Saturday and Sunday for the Cup Series race. 2 years ago we got Michael Jordan to come.
That's right.
I wonder if we're going to get him again. It only comes to a select few races, so.
He has some free time now, though.
Huh?
He has free time now because he sold the Hornets.
Oh yeah, he sold the Hornets. Does he come every week? No?
Not every week.
Oh, okay. So, be interesting to see him down there. Hopefully he's there. Frankie Muniz on Fridays, kind of cool. No, it's always exciting. I think it's there's just something. I mean, NASCAR goes to a lot of small. I mean, just one top of my head, small towns, I guess you could say. The New Hampshire one.
Yeah, New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's kind of like
Pocono.
Yeah, that's kind of like their Watkins Glen in that
definitely,
area.
Definitely.
In their area. So So this is our area. I mean, this is the closest professional sport from Seneca Falls, right? I mean, Buffalo is,
Yeah.
is less than 2 hours.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends, right? Rochester, Syracuse with the Red Wings and S Mets and the Amherst.
Technically, yeah.
and
Technically,
the
they're
Crunch.
technically they're professional, but I'm saying Class A.
Okay.
Professional
Sure,
sports. I
sure.
think this is the closest.
Then probably.
So this is our backyard of professional sports right here, and I recommend it. I mean, I've never been to another NASCAR race, so I have nothing to compare it to, but it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously I get a little bit more
When it's in your backyard.
opportunities than the average fan.
Well, when it's in your backyard too, it makes it easier.
Yeah. I mean, I get to be up and close. I mean, with the NASCAR drivers, which is kind of cool. So I'm a little thankful for
I mean,
that.
yeah.
but-
There's no other sport, even whether you're a fan or it's your job, to get as close as you usually do with the participants, if you will, the athletes who compete.
Yeah.
Right up until start time, even.
Yeah, it's cool walking through the garage and stuff like that. And I think I said this to you last week. In not too many races you get to go in the infield like that,
Right, correct.
in the middle of the circle.
The way it is at Watkins Glen, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And that's not just me; anybody can walk through
Right.
there. So that's kind of cool. And I would like to walk around a little bit more this year, see the whole. I mean, I did that 2 years ago, my first year there. Last year, not so much, but yeah, I think I can walk to the other end, right? Of the
Yeah, I mean, it will be tougher because of the way the camping's set up, but yeah, you can walk pretty much everywhere.
yeah. I think I'm gonna try to do that more this year, especially let me there 2 days instead of one. I'm really looking forward to watching the actual race because the Xfinity I've watched 2 years in a row. I mean, knowledgeable wise, not too deep in that sport. I know a few names. Austin Hill,
That's right, good guy, good
AJ
name.
Allmendinger, I know a little
Finger's a Cup guy again.
Justin Allgaier.
There you go.
But I know a few names. But the Cup Series race, I know pretty much majority of them. So that would be cool to actually watch and actually know who I'm watching here and see who's winning the race and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good time. Always try to find Paul there.
You will. Yeah, I will make it happen again, whether it's
I'm gonna
turn one
predict-
around the infield, but
I have not seen a Watkins Glen race that isn't Kyle Larson winning, so I'm going to predict Kyle Larson to win on Sunday.
going for the three-peat.
I'm predicting Justin Allgaier on Saturday.
All right, I like that. So for ARCA, I'll be there Friday for ARCA, so I'll make a prediction for ARCA as well. Now, sight unseen, we haven't seen the entry list yet for any of the series, but we know who's going to be there pretty much for Saturday, and we know who's going to pretty much be there for Sunday. Friday, you have your regulars, but it's a toss-up. Friday, I'm going to go with a kid, by the name of Jesse Love. Jesse Love's my pick for Friday. Okay. Saturday, I like your pick. I like Allgaier. That's a good pick. That's a safe pick. But I'm not in the business for picking safe sometimes. Not my thing. I'm going to go, I think, with Sammy Smith on Saturday.
I missed the trucks. Why was the trucks there that 1 year?
They were scheduled to go there the year that COVID happened, and then they pushed it back to 2021, and then they moved the truck race to Mid-Ohio. So, yeah. And then Sunday, I'm going to go, I think. Now, this is interesting.
I'm going to go against Larson.
I'm going against Larson. I'm going against Chase. I think I'm going to go with Kyle Busch on Sunday for the Cup Bets. Rowdy Busch.
Wouldn't it be cool to see Bubba win, though?
Oh, I'd lose my mind, but it ain't going to happen on a road course.
Not much of a road course guy.
Not the greatest. He's improved, but not the greatest.
So hard to pass.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, yeah. Then here's the thing for Sunday. It's going to be your first next-gen race then that you're going to see, the next-gen car. So that'll be interesting. Those cars are a lot louder, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Definitely would be if you're walking through the garage or anything like that Sunday. I recommend your protection for sure. You should wear it anyway when you're going through the garage with the engines on and everything, but I definitely would recommend it for Sunday. Or anytime you're in the Cup garage, really.
So where's NASCAR this week?
They're at Indianapolis at the Indy Motor Speedway.
And then they're at
Road
Daytona to
course.
close up the regular season?
Yep. And then Darlington's their first playoff race. So we're We're only a couple of weeks away from playoffs. Playoffs already.
10 weeks. 10 weeks to playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, all right, so that'll do it for Fresh Takes and for today. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, whether live or after the fact. Again, nothing next week, but we'll be back the week after. That might be some sort of football preview-y show because I'll be on vacation the week after, so I don't know what we'll really do, although the NFL doesn't start until the week after Labor Day, but there's college games Labor Day weekend. It's
Week 0.
Yeah. So it's everywhere. But we'll keep everybody in the loop as to what we kind of do there. Nick, who are you shouting out today?
I'm going to stick with the NASCAR theme. Shout out my friend Nate Severance.
That's right.
Who will be officially announced it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Will be with me
All right.
for the NASCAR weekend as well. So
Love it.
he's gonna buy his ticket. Not sure where he's sitting yet, but he will be there. Don't know if he's ever been to Watkins Glen. Went to college with Nate. Big NASCAR fan. Big Martin Truex Jr. fan, I think.
That's all right. That's
I
acceptable.
think that's his guy.
It's acceptable.
I think that's his guy. Cannot confirm, but yeah, look forward to seeing him, and yeah, I'll show him around.
All right, everybody. So we will talk with everybody then in a couple weeks. Like, share, subscribe, all the fun stuff. And until then, we'll see you. We'll see you then.
Finger Lakes one time.